Hello and welcome to Dad's Do Dinner with me, Chris Fazackerly. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us. This is our sneak preview recipe for today, so I hope you enjoy it. It's our mini quiche challenge. Mini quiche, you might ask, why on earth? Because they're so much fun, brilliant as a party nibble or appetizer, and I know my daughter loves them. So let's crack on and take a look. So join me down here. We've got some ingredients. We've got some eggs, and we'll go through how many shortly. We've got some single cream. These are great for mini quiches. If you want to do a bigger quiche, we'll do that later in the series, probably using double cream instead, but for this one it's single cream. I've got some garlic paste, which I'll talk to you about in a bit. I've got one onion. You can use any coloured onion you like. I've just decided to do red onion because they look really, really nice when they're done. We've got some extra mature cheddar here. We've purchased this particular one from a supermarket that rhymes with schmaldi, but nevertheless you can use any cheddar cheese you like. I would suggest you go for one that's a bit more mature just to give it a bit more flavour, but if you really are averse to that, then please do feel free to use mild cheddar if you like. So we're going to use a couple of tools to help us with this, which I hope you have at home. If not, feel free to email us at dadsdodinner@outlook.com to tell me off, but hopefully you'll have a grater and a couple of other things to help us out, mixing jug, which is going to be useful as well. So the first thing we need to do is get the onions ready and caramelised. The reason why I like them caramelised is they just give a bit more flavour to the quiches in general. So let's start with that, shall we? Many thanks to my gorgeous assistant who is filming us today. Thank you very much, Natalie. So let's take a look at preparing our onions. Most important thing for me in any part of our cooking is that we have a nice sharp knife, obviously not for dangerous purposes, but to help us a lot more. A blunt knife can be really difficult to cut up vegetables and other stuff. So this particular sharpener I got for about £1 from a shop that rhymes with Mikia, but yeah, just give it a couple of one-screws just to sharpen it up, and you'll be ready to go with that one. So to prepare your onion, the easiest way I found with onions is that because they're so full of enzymes, that's what makes you cry, these enzymes in the onion. The easiest way to do it is keep whatever you cut on the bottom of the chopping board, and that'll stop the enzymes from escaping and causing all those tears. So we'll just cut each end of the onion, chop it in half, and then keep the bottom to the bottom of the chopping board, and that'll keep the enzymes nice and trapped underneath there. And then we're going to do one cut on the side and one cut on the side, so we have it in thirds, and then we do one cut on the side and one cut on the side, so we have it in thirds. If you want smaller pieces of onion, go for it, just cut it into quarters rather than thirds. It's totally your choice. And keeping it flat to the board here, and we chop the other way around, so we have really nice chopped onion in pretty equal parts. So that's our onion nicely chopped up. So we're going to go over to the frying pan now and get these going. For me personally, I love a non-stick pan. If you don't have one, don't worry too much. We're going to be using a mixture of oil and butter for our particular recipe. If I can find my spatula, which is over there. Love a spatula, I'll tell you why in a bit. So, bit of oil. Don't worry about being too scientific. A bit of a splash. I hope you can see that in there okay. Not too much so it's drowning. We're not trying to deep fry anything, but obviously a nice little dollop will make sure that nothing sticks too badly. And then for the butter, if we just take a look over here, just a really nice knob of butter, and that gives it a really nice flavour for the onions to fry away in there. We'll start heating that up. What do you think of my cooker? There's something out of the 1970s, I think, very exciting. But it's never broken, so being in a house on a fixed income, we've decided not to replace it. So there we go. 1970s, I think. Tri-City Tiara, very exciting. So while this heats up, we're going to see the butter melt around in the pan. The reason why we put a bit of oil in is to stop the butter burning. So if you ever find that you've cooked with butter before and it goes quite brown and starts to smell, that's because it's burning quite quickly. So if you add a bit of oil in, that butter will stop burning pretty well. Keep this stirring around as your oven heats up. Have you noticed that I've not been very scientific at all? And that's what hopefully you're going to get from these videos, is that we don't want too much emphasis on 100 grams this, 50 grams that. Try and be a little bit more relaxed about the cooking that you're doing, and you really don't have to worry too much about these sorts of things. When we come to baking and other things, then we'll look at measurements, but for this particular one, so if you come in and have a look now, you'll see that the butter's really started to melt nicely. And because we put the oil in the pan, it will prevent it from burning too badly at all, if any. Once your butter's become nice and soft and we've got rid of all those bits there, then we'll pop in the onions. So what I want to do now is make sure these onions are really nice and soft. As I said before, you can use a white onion, any onion you like. As long as it's around about that big for your mini quiches, that should be plenty. You want to make sure that you have enough rather than too little. Alright, so I'm going to turn these onions, now that the butter's melted, I'm going to turn them onto a half heat. I don't know what that is on gas, I'm sorry, I'm still cooking on electric. But yeah, just a half heat is absolutely fine. So I'm going to bring you over here now. We're going to start preparing the rest of the mini quiches, okay? So for a standard tray of 12, yes, good. I'm being nodded at, so that's correct. For a standard tray of 12, as you can see, this tray has been very well loved. I believe it was a gift of my Auntie Lena, who lived next door to my grandmother years and years ago, so thank you very much for that, Auntie Lena. To fill a tray like this, I found that 4 eggs is plenty. You might still have some left over, but don't worry. I'd rather you have enough to get through them. So we'll try with 4 eggs and see how we get on, okay? Don't worry again about being too scientific. A lot of people will now say, "Where's the eggs?" Yeah, don't panic at all. 4 eggs in here. No problem, crack on the side, straight in there. Don't worry if the yolk breaks, not a problem, because we're going to be whisking these up anyway. If we have a look at poached eggs in particular, then we'll look at how to keep eggs pretty solid as possible. I hope this wire isn't getting in the way. Do let me know if it is, but I hope it isn't. Okay, so we're going to whisk up our eggs now. Literally, look, a fork. Scary, hey? No whisk here today. So we're just going to mix up our eggs together. Okay, so top tip when we're doing eggs. If you're doing eggs, if you pull the eggs out and it looks really lumpy, so I don't know whether you can see that. You see how it's like dropping in like blobs? It means it's not mixed up correctly. So you'll need to keep mixing that as well. But obviously we've got onions on the go, so we'll check those as well. These are doing really, really nicely. Really nicely softening up now. So what I'm going to do to caramelize them, I'm going to use maple syrup, and that's only because we don't use sugar in this house. If you, of course, want to use sugar, that's entirely fine. I would suggest that a dessert spoonful of sugar would be plenty. If anybody doesn't know what that is, totally fine. It's the normal size spoon that you would get in your cutlery drawer, so I'll show you now. So one of these, just a normal breakfast spoon. I'd say a heaped spoon of this, of sugar. Granulated's fine, caster's fine, whatever you've got is absolutely fine. It'll soon melt in the butter, but because I'm a snob and I don't like sugar, and I'm diabetic, we're going to use maple syrup. A glaze over the pan is all I would use. If you want that in a measurement, I would say it's about 25 grams. But you'll probably see now in the pan that it started really nicely caramelizing. And we can leave this on a half heat now, so that the onions start to soak up all that lovely butter and and maple syrup to really start now nicely caramelizing in the pan, which gives us some more time to carry on with what we're doing. So we learnt before, no lumpy bumpy eggs, so we need to keep mixing until it's really smooth when it comes through. And now, see why we're trying to do these videos in real time is to prove to you that we don't need advert breaks. We can actually do this. See how it's much smoother now. There's no lumps or bumps in that. That's really perfect. So we'll just move this to one side. And now we'll add in some cream. For mini quiches, for 12 of them, I think a third of a pot is plenty. If you want them a bit more creamier, obviously, then put in a half pot, but a third of a pot, about this size. This size is 300 ml, so 100 ml of cream will be plenty. Bonus, lovely. And then whisk that together. And you'll see that the colour of the consistency now goes a bit paler, but it's really nice and all mixed in. Okay, that is our quiche mix, and honestly that is the basic of any small or big quiche you want to do. So when we do a bigger quiche later on, you'll see very similar ingredients there, no problem. Just to add a bit of flavour to here, we're going to add a smidge of garlic because I'm absolutely obsessed. I'm using garlic paste. I would say literally for mini quiches no more than a teaspoonful, but you drop in as much or as little garlic as you like. I have used garlic paste because I'm lazy and I hate crushing garlic, but if you want to crush fresh garlic, then I'd say 1 clove would be perfect. While that is going on, we're going to grate the cheese. Again, I don't want to be too stressy, too scientific about it, but you need to have enough cheese to at least flavour the mini quiches. So I would say a block like that sort of size would be perfect. We'll measure it out properly and we'll put it on the YouTube notes for you. But again, please don't panic if you do too much cheese, it'll never be wasted. Like I said, I've done a lot of cooking that involves a lot of measurements, a lot of this, a lot of that, and I've often found that I've become so stressed with trying to cook to all these exact measurements, and actually I didn't enjoy it at all, whereas ripping off a block and just adding it in, I felt much more better about it. So we'll get all this grated up so it's nice and done. With a larger quiche, what you would probably be better doing is mixing this all up at once. So in terms of when you're doing a recipe itself, you'll probably find that in the footnotes you'll see that everything's mixed in together for a larger quiche. For a mini quiche, you really don't have to worry about it. It's more about the intense flavour for those 2 seconds that you're eating it. So as long as everything's prepared properly and grated properly, then you don't need to worry about it too much. For those of you who can't tell, I'm actually surrounded by this amazing caramelised aroma right now. So I'm just going to finish off my cheese and then we'll go back to the onions. Again, guys, remember, you don't have to worry about things that are going on. Don't have to stare at a hob too much. They won't burn as long as you haven't got the heat on too high. Once you've done your cheese, look, how scientific am I? Mess, bleh, lovely, no problem. And that's all ready to go. Clean hands all the time. Try not to blast myself with too much cheese. Okay. How are we doing on our onions? Marvellous. That is smelling really good. Okay, I'm going to turn this down now to a really low heat, so I'm on number 1. Really nice golden brown colour. And I'm just going to pop over to my herb section, so if you come with me. Herbs that go well with onion, I love tarragon, absolutely love it, but we'll save that for a special occasion. Don't look at my herb drawer because it's covered in rubbish at the moment, but I'm going to grab some parsley to go in them today. Dry parsley, absolutely fine for this particular dish. If you want to get fresh parsley, that's fine. We'll save that for another dish where we look at that. But my general rule of thumb is a light dusting all over the top of what you're cooking is plenty. If you want an exact amount, it's another one of those dessert spoons leveled, that would be plenty. This doesn't need cooking too long at all. The dry herbs will cook in the mixture as well in the oven. Speaking of the oven, I have preheated the oven to about 200. It looks like 220 on here, that's because I've got an old rickety oven, but if you have a fan assisted oven, 200 will be plenty. And I'm going to turn off those onions. I know they're done because it's got a nice golden brown colour, if not a bit more of a caramelly sort of coloured brown. The onions look translucent, which means that they are not see-through completely, but kind of got a nice sheen on them now, and that'll be plenty for the flavour. Don't worry about all this extra cooking sauce, we'll use that to flavour the mixture. The most important thing now is that you get these onions off the heat, and the reason why you have to get them off the heat as quickly as possible is because if they go straight into the egg mix now, the egg will start to literally cook, so it'll become quite curdled. Anyway, you don't want to see that. So we'll take those off the heat now, and while those are cooling down, we'll prepare our quiche tin. Okay. Here's my quiche tin. To stop me hopefully burning the quiches too quickly, I'm going to cheat and use fry lights. This is available really cheap from supermarkets that rhyme with schmaldi, and we're just going to spray the tin now. I'm sure there are professional bakers out there who are screaming at me not using greaseproof paper, but hey, we live in the real world. So let's do it my way. So while that's there getting ready for the quiches, we're just going to pop over to the fridge. I'm going to go over to this side, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't make my own pastry. The reason being is that you can buy it so cheap now, there really is no point. If you wanted to create your own short crust pastry, that's absolutely fine. We can go through pastry and bread making another day. For the sake of doing these nibbles for our New Year's Eve party, we're going to just stick to ready made and ready rolled, which is such a blessing. So we'll pop over here and have a look. One of the things I really like to do with my quiches is make them a little bit pretty. So I'm going to use a cake cutter, or a biscuit cutter if you like. You really don't have to if you don't want to. You can use the edge of a cup, for example. So you can use this edge to cut into the pastry. It doesn't have to be scientific at all, but because I'm obviously into the flamboyant, as you know, I'm going to use a cutter. And what you need to do is just make sure that your cutter does cover the hole, okay? So you don't want them too small, but you don't want them too big either, okay? The other nice thing about getting pre-rolled pastry is that it comes on its own baking sheet. I'm not going to use it in this particular episode, but we'll think of uses to use for it in other times. So I've got 12 rings to make, so you start on the outside and you literally just cut your shapes out. Can you see that okay? So as you cut your shapes out, you'll notice that you're going to have leftover pastry. Not a problem at all. You can reuse this to make short crust biscuits if you want to. I'm not going to do that today, but if you'd like to know, then do contact me and we'll go through how we do that. Just get these done. I've used quite a big pastry cutter for this one, so if we don't get 12 out of this one, don't punish me. It's all in good fun, but what I'm trying to do is make sure I don't waste as much as possible on the recipe that we're doing. Some of you who are really ardent bakers will be asking, why will I not blind bake these? Mostly because they're going as pre-dinner nibbles, so I'm not going to stress too much about blind baking. Also because I just don't have the pottery beads or anything like that that might be used for this particular type of baking, and they're so small, honestly people will love them just for the flavour themselves. So as you've guessed from the ingredients, we're doing cheese and onion quiches. You can make any sort of filling you like. Once you've got the base of the egg and the cream together, you can pretty much do any mixture you like, really, as long as it's, you know, you think it's pretty sensible. So I've done cheese and ham. What else have I done? Crumbs. I've done broccoli and Stilton. That was a bit mental, but they went down pretty well. So there's a lot of like classic fillings you can do, and not feel, you know, like you're veering too far from a classic recipe. This is actually going really well, which I'm quite surprised about because I was quite nervous today. So let's see how we get on. We're nearly there, so I've got 3 more left to do. And what we'll do is, once we've got all of the pastry cases done, then we will get the filling in as quickly as possible. Do remember though, I want those onions that you've just done as cold as possible. They don't have to be freezing cold, but if you're worried, these pastry tins will stay in here, no problem, for well up to half an hour without drying too much. If you are worried, however, drop me a line and we can talk about it, but I really don't want you to panic at all. The whole point of this is that it's really tasty but really quick fun food to do, to entertain your family and your friends. And as this is a preview video of our official launch on the 1st of January 2019, I'm not going to stress too much. Once you're finished with those bits, you can do with them what you like. I will save those for later. Anywho, one thing my nana always taught me was a good cook always cleans as they go, but today not so much, mostly because I don't have the time. Right, there's our pastry cups. Don't they look lovely? Say ooh ah, ooh ah. So now we're going to put in our filling. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move over to the other side now, so everything's like pretty close to each other. So we'll move this over to here. Yeah, that looks perfect. Okay, so you ready? Don't panic. With your egg mix, what you want to do is make it equal. Don't worry if you have leftovers, you haven't done anything wrong. People's tins might be different sizes, I might have done it wrong. It's okay, we're just having fun. So what I want you to do is I want you to fill it up, each egg cup, to about, I'd say 5 millimeters from the top, if you want to be really precise about it. Again, don't panic if they overspill in the oven, big deal. This is more about flavour, and it's about having fun presenting these amazing mini quiches that they will be when you have finished with them. So as we finish filling them up, we're going to use a cold spoon to get the onions out, to make sure they're as absolutely cold as possible. Once you have filled up your, yeah, I'm pretty happy with those. See, I've got a bit left over. I'm not going to panic about it, just put it to the side. We'll deal with that later. Okay, so small spoon, I'm so glad they're in the drawer. Whew. Thank you, wifey. Right. With a non-stick pan. Guys, girls, metal, non-stick, do not mix. So I'm going to be really gentle getting this out, but I don't have a plastic spoon because I just broke it. My wife doesn't know, but she does now. We're just going to, if we have a look now, we're just going to pop in little bits of the caramelised onion really gently from one pan into the other. See, not lots, just enough. We can always top them up later, just making sure that at least every quiche has got some of the caramelised onion in. Remember, this is all about flavour, about being really super clever with your flavours. We can mix these up later, not a problem. I don't want anybody emailing me going, this is too stressful. It's not meant to be. If it is too stressful, then don't do it. If you're not enjoying your cooking, there is no point in doing it. I learnt that very early on when I realised that I was trying to do absolutely everything to a measuring jug, and I just wasn't enjoying it at all. So when I realised that cooking for yourself and cooking for your family can be so much more fun. Excuse me. It could be just so much less traumatic by being less precise, but being sensible with what you do. So I'm just going to fill these up a little bit more. Look at that. So now every single tartlet has at least some of the caramelised onion in. Bonus. Right, last thing we need to do before we shove them in the oven is we need to add the cheese. Don't panic. Okay, here's our cheese. So we're literally going to add about a teaspoon, heaped teaspoonful on each one to start off with. You can always go back and add more. Please do not worry. It's not meant to be a mental challenge. It's meant to be fun. And honestly, once you serve these up, people will go nuts for them. I've not had a single person yet who said they were awful, and they're just so easy to make, and just a great entertaining tool. You can make a dinner out of them as well. Obviously this is Dad's Do Dinner, but we're launching on our New Year's Eve preview, so this is a bit more of a snack for our friends and family tonight. But honestly, you can put these mini quiches with some fries and a side salad, not a problem. Yeah, I'm just topping these up now with a bit more cheese because I've got a bit left over. They can cope. They can cope. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look. Amazing. I get so excited when I cook, as you can probably tell. We're nearly done. Look at this. So what we'll do is we'll pop these in the oven. Once they're in, you'll need to bake them. I tried 20 minutes. They were just shy. What you want is a really nice solid sort of golden base to your pastry. I have a really old decrepit oven, as you've probably already seen, but I've learnt now that in my oven it needs at least 30 minutes. If you have a fan assisted oven, try 20, take them out. If they're really crispy on the edges, fine, take them out. I would suggest 25 minutes for these mini quiches of this size, just to make sure they're absolutely all cooked properly. Look at that. I said a handful of cheese and it was. Right, so just pat these down really gently. Try not to spill the egg out. Don't worry, the egg will come out when it cooks anyway, but it will look great, I promise. So just to remind you, I preheated my oven to about 200, 210. Fan assisted ovens, this 200 is absolutely plenty. And we're gonna pop these in now. Thank you very much for joining us on our pre-launch recipe, and we'll see the results a bit later on.